What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel, the #1 place for entrepreneurs, where I give you the keys you need to succeed. Today, I am so excited about today's episode because I'm talking about how to rebuild and regain your confidence after divorce. Now, I know this isn't specifically business, but just stay tuned because a lot of it is tied to my business, so you'll want to stay tuned to check out these tips. If you don't know, I went through a pretty long divorce that just got finalized a couple of months ago. The divorce actually lasted over 2 years, and it definitely took an emotional toll on me. If you haven't watched the episode from a couple weeks ago where I talked about how to run your business through divorce, definitely check that out. But I say all that to say, it is something that is a completely different and difficult process than I had ever gone through. Divorce is different than a breakup on a lot of levels because you're dealing with a lot of legal things, and even when you want the situation to be over, the situation is not necessarily over, it's just ongoing. And for me, that took a lot out of me. It caused a lot of confidence issues with me. It caused a lot of confidence issues that were reflected in my business. So I'm going to tell you how I got out of that slump and how I rebuilt my confidence through that process. So stay tuned if you want some encouragement and guidance on how to rebuild a confidence after a life-altering event. It doesn't even have to be divorce. It could be a variety of things, but I promise these tips will help you. So for me, divorce was definitely a turning point. It was something that caused me a lot of reflection. It makes you feel like a failure in a sense, and there's like a whole lot of guilt that you start to feel. There's embarrassment. You're wondering what people are thinking. You're wondering what you think. You're also mourning not only a relationship that you had, but a future that you thought you would have. So it's a lot different and something that I hadn't really dealt with. Also, none of my friends at the time, and even now, thankfully, had ever dealt with divorce. I did have a lot of guidance from some of my dance parents who definitely helped me out, but it was a completely new territory for me. So I know when I was going through the situation, I knew that it would be a hard situation that I had to get through. I've mentioned I signed up for counseling before anybody even knew what was going on. I was in church, I was journaling, I was doing all the things, but what I didn't anticipate was how it would affect my confidence and how that would roll over to my business. So I would say when you're putting so much into a relationship and a marriage, as you should, and then it comes crashing down, it does make you doubt yourself in ways that you didn't realize that you could even doubt yourself. Because I'm not just talking about self-confidence with looks or with how you feel. I'm talking about with your ability to make something successful. And that trickled over into my business because it started making me question all of my business decisions, what I was doing. I did not have any backbone with my decisions. I wasn't sure about things. I was just moving completely different, and I definitely had to align myself and to get myself out of that place because it was starting to affect my business. So I'm going to talk about how I did that today. The first thing I did to rebuild my confidence after divorce was to focus on the small wins. So I was really adamant about focusing on my business and what I needed to do to keep it up and running. And I would do things so small and just make sure that I was constantly celebrating my wins, celebrating my accomplishments, making sure that I was on the right track for what I was doing and keeping myself hyped up with that. Because when you celebrate your small wins, even if they're small, there's something that triggers in your brain that wants more of that. You want to win more, you want more celebration, you want more of that feeling that you did something good and that you're capable of doing something. So if you're in a funk, if you're going through something like that, make sure that you monitor and celebrate your small wins and use that momentum to build up to your big wins. So for example, if there was something like new students or we hit a certain amount of enrollment, I would make sure that I was always celebrating that and just making sure that I built myself up and my confidence up to know that I was capable of doing something like that. And it showed me where I needed to be focused as well in my business or in my life. The next thing I did to really make sure that I was building my self-confidence after the divorce was self-care. I had to be adamant about making sure that I was always doing self-care. I was always pouring into myself, whether that was doing things that I love, taking baths, journaling, things like that, to make sure that I was at the top level that I could be, so that I would constantly build up my confidence. That could be things like working out. That's when I became consistent with working out, and it wasn't so much because I wanted a body or I wanted to look a certain way. I promise it was all mental. And it was me getting those small wins in my workout and doing that self-care that really put myself in a different mind frame and allowed me to start slowly building my confidence up again. And I didn't even realize like the body part of it until one of my friends pointed out. She was like, girl, look at how you looked in this picture and how you looked in this picture. I didn't realize. I just knew that I needed to be there. I needed to be consistent. I needed to invest in myself. So one way I did that was working out. Another way I did that was just getting massages as much as I could, spending alone time and doing the things that I love, getting back to the things I love, whether that's music or dancing or things like that. Just constantly be pouring into myself to build myself up. The next thing I did was reflection and forgiveness. So I mentioned journaling before, but journaling is something that really helped me throughout the process. One, to just figure out where my feelings were, to just analyze my feelings and make sure that I was in a healthy place mentally, along with therapy, don't get me wrong. But journaling and reflecting on the relationship, reflecting on what you did wrong, what you could have changed, things like that, really helped me in seeing what was my issue and what I needed to fix and things that I could improve that ultimately I started working on to help me get to where I am now. That also built my confidence in working on those things, because when you're reflecting and you're looking at what you could do better, it's gonna boost your confidence anyway. You're gonna feel like that girl, you're gonna feel like you can do anything, you're gonna see where you need to improve and you're gonna make those changes, and then you'll look back and say, okay, this is where I wanted to be, and this is where I was, and this is where I wanted to be, and now I'm here. So things like that build your confidence as well. The next thing I did to build up my confidence after the divorce was focusing on my passion, and that for me, of course, is business. It's the studio, it's all the things, and I was really, if you watched my video from a couple weeks ago, really down about things. I wasn't able to focus, I wasn't able to participate how I wanted to, and I had to flip a switch in my head so that I was able to get back on track with where I needed to be. So really just focus on what you're passionate about. If that's not your job, it could be a hobby. If you don't have something you're passionate about, that might be a good time to find what you're passionate about, to adopt a new hobby, to just get yourself where you need to be. And focusing on that instead of focusing on all of the things that you lost, try to gain new things to kind of replace it. The next thing was setting new goals, and this for me was insane. This was probably the biggest process, point A to point Z, that I've ever gone through, because I was always a goal setter. I've been a goal setter. You can look back at videos. I've always been someone who has their goals, breaks them down into SMART goals, into actionable items and things like that. But when there's something so big that kind of just throws everything off of your trajectory that you had for your life, I was upset. I went from being mad that I had to completely rebuild and restart my life over and have a new vision for my life, to finally accepting, okay, I guess I'm gonna have to rebuild my life. I guess I have to get a new vision for it, to actually being excited about it. And when I tell you that process was so transformational, because I was in such a slump with, that was probably the thing I was most upset about outside of the actual marriage, but having to rebuild my life that I had just built up and I was good, and then it all kind of came crashing down. So I had to set new goals, and I had to have a new vision for what I wanted to accomplish and where I wanted to be, and I had to get excited about it. Because like I said, at first I was mad. Then I was just like, okay, well, we got to do what we got to do. And then I became excited, and I was like, well, now you get to make sure you use that language. Now I get to create a new life for myself. I get to create a new plan for myself. I get to create what my destiny is, rather than just going with what I had before. So getting new goals, getting a new vision for your life will definitely help you get out of that slump and rebuild your confidence. The other thing I had to do was set boundaries and redefine relationships, because obviously when you're going through something legally, there's attorneys, of course, but you still have to talk with that person to an extent. You have to set new boundaries with yourself, and you have to remember what you deserve as a person and how you should be talked to as a person. And sometimes that's no contact. Sometimes that's, okay, you can talk to me between these hours. Sometimes it's whatever it may be. You have to set those boundaries for yourself, not just in that relationship, but in all your relationships moving forward. And when you start to set those boundaries and you start to remember what you deserve as a person and how you should be spoken to as a person, your confidence is just going to naturally build up. So I definitely invite you to explore those boundaries that you have in that relationship, but in all outside relationships, and just focus on yourself. It's okay to say, I'm not in the place to talk. I don't want to speak with you. I think we should be having this conversation, not just to that person, but to everybody. And once you start respecting yourself, people are going to start respecting you, and that respect is just going to build up. It's like a snowball effect. So that's definitely something that you can do to build your confidence after a big transition. So I'm going to give you a couple of actionable steps to rebuild your confidence after divorce that will help you. Number one, embrace and accept the change. So if you haven't read the book, Who Moved My Cheese, that's a book that helped me tremendously. Basically talks about how if something changes in your life, some unexpected change, you can either wallow in self-pity, or you can be like one of the characters in the book who just accepts the change, keeps it moving, figures out what they have to do. And that's what I would constantly think about in that process, and make sure that I was accepting of all the changes, as opposed to just being upset about it, because what's done is done. In my case, what was done, and there was no going back. There was no exploring if it was gonna work or not. I had to just accept it and move forward. And I hate change, absolutely hate change. So that's something that I had to keep in mind. If you haven't read it, Who Moved My Cheese? Another step is focus on self-care and taking care of yourself. One of the things that I would tell myself when I was pretty deep in my depression was to take care of myself like I was a child. So I don't have kids, I have my dance kids, but I don't have biological children. But I had to tell myself, if you were a child, how would you need to take care of yourself? Did you eat today? Did you shower today? Are you okay? What do you need? That's how I had to talk to myself, to just make sure that I was prioritizing self-care and taking care of myself, which ultimately built my confidence back up, not only because I realized I was able to pull myself out of that situation, but because through the self-care and through taking care of yourself, you start to feel more and more like yourself every day. The next actionable step would be to seek support, whether that be therapy, family, friends, church. I did all 4 of those, and they all were necessary, but seek support where you can get it. Reach out to people if you need help. There are support groups. That's another thing that I did, joined a lot of support groups on Facebook. Women going through divorce, Black women going through divorce, and things like that that actually help. Because like I said, I didn't have friends who had gone through that situation. So being able to talk to other people and being able to relate to people who are going through that situation as well was very important for me. Aside from all of that, just remember who you are, and if you're a believer, that you are a child of God, that there are no mistakes that are ever being made, and that you will get through this situation and continue to just build yourself up to make yourself feel the best that you can, whether that be physically, mentally, spiritually. With me, it was all of those, all 3 of those, and emotionally. And do not get upset if it takes longer than you think it will take, okay? It's a process, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. You have to show yourself grace, and you have to just be consistent with whatever routes and methods you take, because it will pay off. That's it, guys. Those are my tips to rebuild your confidence after divorce or a tough situation. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Turn on your post notifications so that you can be notified whenever I drop new videos. If you would like to connect with me, find me on social media at Asia Carp, or on my website, asiaonline.com. I'm also offering one-on-one business coaching. If that's something you're interested in, I can teach you how to take your passion and turn it into a profitable business. All right, guys, have a great day and a successful life. I will see you next time.